Hi, I'm Russ with DevotedGolfer.tv. I'm here with Chris Voschel from Mizuno and Woody Lashen, friend and fellow fitter from Pete's Golf.
Hi, Russ.
How you doing?
Good, thanks.
Chris,
Yes.
tell our viewers exactly what it is you do at Mizuno.
So I've been in the R&D team there for about 11 years, and I'm one of the main design and club engineers. So I do a lot of design work on the front end all the way to mass production. I also do a lot of work with our tour staff, kind of like as a liaison between the R&D and tour, doing some fittings and prototype work.
So the new Jpx 850 the Boron, that's yours?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's something that, it's a pretty cool technology just because we've been working on it for about 6 years. So we've been trying to overcome some of the limitations of forging in terms of how thin you can go, just basically for durability. So we've been looking for a different material that'll have the similar flow properties for forging, which it's still a 1025 carbon steel, but with the addition of boron in it, we're actually able to strengthen it by roughly 30%. So it's not necessarily harder, because it's still a 1025, but it is stronger. And with that stronger material, you can actually forge a little bit thinner and mill a little bit closer to the face to get a higher rebound area and a higher COR.
So that's how you were able to get the edges of this even thinner than they were before.
Exactly.
So now we've spread that impact area
Right,
out
so actually the face thickness has decreased by roughly 1/2 millimeter, which in terms of the golf world, 1/2 millimeter is a lot in the design side. So that's not only is it weight savings, but it's increased rebound area. And then comparing it to the 825 Pro, which we had in the past, which also had a milled pocket cavity, you could only get so close to the face with that milling before you lost durability. With the added strength of the boron, you can mill it even closer. So that's almost acting like a sole hinge area. So not only are we increasing the rebound area with a thinner face, but we're also engaging the sole in that impact as well.
So we're not going to have to worry about failures.
Correct.
Or collapses of the head.
Correct.
Because we're still there, and you've extensively tested this material.
Yeah. So with the strength of it, we're able to go to thinness levels that we haven't been before to get that extra spring. But it's every bit as strong, if not stronger, than it was before.
Now, is there any possibility you can do that in more of a player's head so that we don't have that backwards center of gravity?
There's a chance. I mean, we're always working in the future. Of course.
Yeah.
And we honestly see the boron material in the forging world as kind of a game changer in terms of what you can do for distance and speed. So while this execution is in the JPX world, we've definitely looked at different applications and how to use it.
Chris, can you tell us what's the golfer can expect to see out of that 850 forged? Are they going to see more ball speed? Are they going to see less spin? What are they going to see? Because we talk about 1/2 millimeter, and Russ and I are like, oh, wow, that's a lot. But the average golfer has no idea what that means.
Right. And what I'd expect to see out of that is first off, faster ball speeds. So it is a 0.80 COR, which compared to a traditional forging, which is around the 0.77 range, maybe 0.78, get possibly an extra mile and a half hour of club head speed. So a little bit added distance. We also, because we went thinner on the face, we had more weight to play with, so more weight pushed to the extreme, so more forgiving, larger moment of inertia. So not only are you getting faster ball speeds, but you're also getting a more forgiving head. And all of that is in a forged package, which is really the best of both worlds in terms of feel, because you get all that performance, but it still feels like a proper golf club. It's a very similar 1025 mild carbon steel like we use in our blades. So it got a lot more soft feel with the added playability benefits.
So I get the best of both worlds, is what you're telling me.
Absolutely.
I like it. I like it a lot.
I'm glad that the MP59 morphed into the MP15, because I didn't want to see that head go away.
Right.
I was a little worried last year that there wasn't a revision of it, and it went into the signature category, and I thought, I'm going to lose one of my favorite clubs. Yeah.
The 15 was an interesting project because morphed is the right word, because we took the 59 and we took the 64, two great models that slightly appealed to different players, and tried to combine them into one. So the 15 compared to the 59, it's a little bit smaller head than the 59. A little bit more players, again, speaking more to the MP, thinner top line, thinner sole. But we really wanted to increase the feel of it. We wanted to really make it feel more like a one piece. The 59 had a little bit of a clicky feel to it when you compare it to a traditional MP golf club. So what we did is actually by, again, forging the titanium in there, we forged it in a different way. What I mean by that is it was a flat piece of titanium, 11 grams. We figured out that if we actually give it some reinforcing qualities to it, meaning forge it in a three-dimensional shape, more of a what we call a rooftop shape, so more of a triangle, it's a little bit more reinforcing, so you could actually forge a little bit less titanium in, but have greater stability and greater strength with less titanium. So that gave us even more weight to play with. So even though the club got smaller and more strong, we had an extra 10 grams to move around the head, so it got more forgiving too. So the best is when you make a player's club that does everything a player's club should, feels better, looks better, but is also more forgiving. That's kind of no compromises there.
You left something off there. It
Okay.
sounds better.
Sounds better, absolutely. And that was what we found out through our research is a lot of the sound of, the clickiness from the 59 and the 58, it comes from the contact surface area between the titanium and the steel. How much surface area is actually in contact. The more surface area is in contact, the more it feels like a two-piece, the more it has a little bit of a click and less of that kind of clean vibration. By going down to 10 grams and giving it that three-dimensional shape, the surface area that's actually in contact is minimized. So it's more reinforced, minimized surface area, so again, feels better. So that was one of the key things we did.
But when you hit that thing sweet, it just has a little note that comes out.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's certain vibrations that feel right to an MP player, and we've tried to dial all those in on this.
Yeah, yeah. I put it in my bag, and
Excellent.
What a great club.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Chris, can you tell us a little bit about how long it takes to design iron? Because one of the things I love about Mizuno is that you don't come out with a new product every year. It was the 59 is a perfect example of,
Right.
hey, we left this out for a year. We didn't have this product for a year,
Right.
where Russ was clamoring for it, right?
Right.
I need.
Well, I was still using it.
But you didn't
actually.
rush something
Right.
out to the market that wasn't ready.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I really admire about my company. Is it's a great company where we stick to our timelines, meaning when we put out a club, we're not putting it out to replace it as soon as possible. We're wanting to give you meaningful steps when we make a replacement. So you'll see at a minimum clubs are in the line for 2 years, just because we're working on the next replacement. We don't think we can make a substantial improvement the next year. We want another additional year to make sure we're not just making a baby step, we're making a big leap in performance for the next
Right.
one.
As a fitter, I really like that because by the time I learn some of the clubs, and it takes me a little while, I'm experiential based.
Right.
And by the time I get experience on the damn thing, it goes away on me.
Right.
It's like, damn, I just learned it. It's gone
Right.
now.
It's got to be the same thing from a design standpoint, right? You just design something, or you got to design something new. Well, I just figured it out.
That's so true, and that's one of the things where we're typically working about 2 to 2.5 years in advance. So if by doing that, we actually are able to see how each club that we're trying to replace is doing in the market. I honestly get the feeling that some of the other people with such short timelines, they're replacing a club that they have no idea how it's going to be received yet. So we actually have a little bit of market, feeling of how it's going to go while we're working on the replacement, as opposed to us just rushing the timeline, letting that dictate everything. So that gives us extra time to make more beneficial improvements, but also extra time to see what was wrong with the original one. We think we know what's wrong, what are the shortcomings of each one.
I wouldn't put it that way. It's not what was wrong with it.
Right.
It's
What can you improve?
how can I fine tune it?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Mizuno makes great stuff.
As
I'm
an
not sure there's much
engineer,
wrong.
anything that can be improved is something wrong. So I want to fix that. So that's just the perfectionist in me.
As a marketing guy, I never use that word.
Right, exactly. No, you're right.
I love your honesty.
Yeah,
Just try to make it better.
exactly.
Yeah. You want to talk about the driver?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about driver because finally we have something from Mizuno that I like from a driver standpoint. Can you tell us a little bit about the Jpx Driver?
Tell us a little about the development of
Okay,
the driver.
sure. So, we've had what we call our fast track technology since '06, was when we launched the MP600. The using weights on tracks is so much better as an engineer in terms of weight to play with, as opposed to weight screws, where, just to use an example, if you've got 2 weight screws, an 8 gram and a 1 gram, you're using 9 grams to only move 7.
Yeah, yeah.
Of the fast track, it's moving weight, replacing it with air. You can't do any better than that. So it's the maximum amount of flexibility in terms of using weight that we could put elsewhere. So after the 600 and the 630, we really wanted to see what's the next meaningful step we could make using the fast track design. And with the 850, we wanted to focus on all levels of fitting. So it has the adjustable hosel that allows you to vary the loft from 7.5 up to 11.5 degrees. But then it's got 3 tracks, and for the first time, the weights aren't locked in any track, which is really the exciting thing about that. It required trips to the USGA to talk to them about whether this is legal or not, how we can overcome some questions that they had. And we actually did a lot of different design iterations to take it from an illegal state to a legal state, but still with the same functionality. So what we wanted to do is put that center track in the middle to really let you dial in a spin rate. And then the toe and heel weights let you dial in the trajectory. So when you're doing a fitting, the key things you're looking at are ball speed, which of course this is a very, very hot face on it. Really new designed face and core tech. So the multi-thickness is a little bit different than it has been in the past in terms of the layout. So really good ball speeds off the face. You can adjust the launch angle with the adapter, adjust the spin rate with the center track, and adjust the left-right bias with the toe-heel weight. So it's something that, you know, for an experienced fitter like you guys, it gives you more things to play around with. But for the guy who's not the most experienced fitter, it's a little bit more easy to understand and something that you can tinker with and not be confused because if I adjust this, what's it do to everything else? We want it to be somewhat independent.
Yeah, I've had one really, really interesting experience with it so far, and I don't know if you've looked at Phil Cheatham's dissertation on handle torque velocity.
I am not. That sounds intense.
So he's talking about rotation rate and the different kinds of players and what you would see in hip displacement for different handle torque velocities. And on a flight scope, I've always seen the handle torque velocity manifested into the head with what we call the fish hook. And if you have too much fish hook, you don't have a really good fit. And I took the weights, I took one of the weights and put it in heel position, which essentially reduced the weight of the head in a dynamic sense, right? And by doing that, I was able to take a curve that looked like that into one that looked like that, which is what I'm after. Right?
Yeah.
And so it was a matter of moving the position of the weight in the head that removed some toe rotation for that golfer.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've given any thought to that one, but
not in those terms. That sounds a little out there, but it sounds great. No, but it is interesting how those weights affect different swing types. That's something that we've really seen. Yeah, to put it in the most layman's terms.
Yeah, it'll work for one person, but you'll get exactly the opposite effect from the next guy.
We've seen a lot of people, and the way we kind of describe it internally is somebody kind of a releaser or someone who releases the driver through or someone who holds on through.
I'll send you a link to the paper.
I can't wait to read it.
Yeah.
But really, what a heel weight does is completely different for those two players. And you know, for somebody who holds on, a heel weight doesn't make the ball go left. It just reduces that center of gravity distance and allows that player to have more control over the head. For a lot of guys, it makes it easier to cut the ball. And as soon as that weight goes out on the toe, all of a sudden that CG distance is long, the head has more control, the player has less control, and it becomes somewhat unstable for them. So you really have to understand the player that you're fitting to know exactly what those toe heel weights are going to do.
Well, knowing where the golfer hits the ball in the face, for me, is critical for that, because he's hitting more towards the toe. A lot of times it's supposed to put the weight on the toe, he's going to hit more right, and all of a sudden they hit it more straight. Because they're actually hitting it more where the CG is. It's really, you know, counterintuitive, and then you see what happens with the player. And now with your Jpx driver, I can move more weight. That's
awesome.
The thing I love about you saying I can only move 7 grams. I can move so much more weight. If I go shorter, I can add another weight.
Exactly.
So I can even, and we do a lot shorter. So it's even more weight.
Well, and that was one of the other things with the USGA is it had to be legal in all possible configurations. You can put 5 weights in there. I put 50 grams in that thing, and it's still legal, which is good. So
and no weights.
When you talk about it had to be legal, you're talking about coefficient restitution.
I'm talking about some of the not being able to set it up in an illegal setup.
What would an illegal setup be?
To give an example, if you were to, you know, when you look at the head, the back weight is labeled 1, the front weight's labeled 3. It's 1, 2, 3. If you put a weight in the back at 1 and then don't tighten the weight at 3, you could have a moving part. and you could have a hammer effect. You could do something, you know. So, and there's that, and then there's the discussion of wind tunnels, which there's a lot of rules on wind tunnels for clubs.
You mean I can?
It's not going to do anything. It's not going to help you, but I mean, we got to use a lot of prior art as argument against that, where you can set up some of the other clubs to have moving parts as well. That's not the intention. You know, golf is a game of intention.
Right.
So, you know, the player has to.
Well, I might intend to hit it longer and make myself a hammer.
Well,
There you
I think
go.
the USGA is when they decide to allow adjustable golf clubs, really open themselves up, right?
Absolutely.
Because before they were illegal,
Right.
illegal, and you know, in my talking to them over the years, they said one of the things they want to do is make my job easier. If I can make it, if they could make it easier on a fitter to help someone play better golf through fitting, so they open it up. But I'm sure it's still going to be really hard to get things approved.
By making your job easier, they made their job harder, because it's my job to push those limits to the exact boundaries that I can. If a club, it's almost like lawyer talk. You know, you see how stuff is written. You want to see how I can work around every bit of these rules just to try to get as much performance as possible. That's my job.
Right. You're not looking to make it illegal. You're just trying to make it perform as good as you possibly can.
I'm looking to make it as good as possible within a given set of rules.
I remember the early coefficient of restitution testing was only done at the center.
Right.
And I had manufacturers coming to me and saying, just tell people to hit it high.
Yeah.
Because we've heated up high face.
We did the same thing. That's what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, you push it to the limit.
Yeah, you read what's written and you say, okay, that means you can't do this, but you can do this. So that's what we do.
And next year that was gone.
Right, exactly.
And they change it.
Yeah.
But there's still a few of those heads out there that were.
There probably are, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the USGA's got a lot of, I mean, they do a fantastic job of governing the game, and it's good. I mean, I'm glad we have that, but I'm sure they get as frustrated with us as we get with them sometimes, just because we want to make stuff. I want everyone to shoot so low.
So the slot technology now, hybrid, fairway, and driver.
The fairway and hybrid have what we call the shockwave sole.
So my friends are watching me hit that thing, and they're saying, that's not fair.
That's what we're going for, is that kind of reaction when people hit it. Absolutely.
Yeah, so they're lined up waiting for it.
Good. To talk to you about that, kind of what we did there is we were looking at a little bit of a shortcoming in the industry of what's not out there. And all the push right now has been for crazy low spin, super shallow center of gravity. What we wanted to do there is try to get as much playability out of a club and really forgiveness more than anything. And by having a little bit deeper center of gravity paired with the shockwave sole, you're getting the speed benefit of the shockwave, which engages the entire head in the impact, gets you a little bit more ball speed. But a little deeper center of gravity gives you more forgiving golf club, easier to launch, going to get in the air better for a lower swing speed player. On top of that, when you're designing a wood, if you have 1 gram to use, you want it all the way in the back. That has the most benefit for MOI by far. Now you can talk about a toe heel weight on an iron that's furthest from the center of gravity to increase MOI, but on a wood that is not the furthest. The furthest point is straight back because the face is so heavy that the center of gravity is extremely close to the face. So moving away any grams you can in the back has the largest effect on MOI by far. So that's why we put a lot more weight in the back of that club and paired that for an easier launch club paired with the shockwave sole to get more speed.
And I've seen that. The head's a little deeper than the fairway woods I were playing. So, so you push it back a little.
Can you tell us a little about the wedges? Because you got we have new wedges this year. And I think you've made a lot of big changes there.
Absolutely. So the most frustrating thing for me, granted I work for Mizuno, forging is what we do, that's what we're known for. The most frustrating thing that I don't get is why players demand forged irons and then don't play forged wedges. That makes
they don't know.
Maybe they like their wedges to go click.
Right.
I like my wedges to go thump.
I like a little less feel on the short game. That makes perfect sense. I hear that all the time. So, I mean, granted, we've made it a little bit tougher on the better player by not having quite as many options in terms of loft bounce options as well as sole grind options.
I have ground a lot of last year's wedges.
And quite honestly, they needed it a lot. And I'll tell you how we got to where we did on that wedge. On that wedge, We had the T11 and the R12 wedges before that, and each one got more and more aggressive with the grind. Arguably too aggressive for some of our tour staff.
Really?
Our tour staff our guys out on there who are working with the players, they like to be able to hand grind stuff, and we don't provide raw heads to the tour. Everything that the tour guys are playing is what you can buy in the shop.
Yeah, well, the T4 was a raw head.
The T4 was essentially a blank slate for them, and that's where that wedge came from.
Yeah.
So with the T5, we wanted to take everything that was good about the shape and the feel of the T4, but add grinds to it. So it's got 5 different grinds throughout the set, and then the other thing we wanted to do is really increase our loft offerings. So we do every loft from 49 to 62 degrees, every single loft, 57, 61, 53, all the weird numbers you don't think you need, but with
we need them, by the way.
Good.
We need them.
And the better fitter understands the benefit of them, especially as pitching wedges have gotten to be 44 degrees. You know, the standard 52, 56, 60 gap sand lob doesn't make sense anymore. You need more options than that. And each player needs to be able to get dialed in for exactly what they want to do with the wedge in terms of either distance gapping or picking a particular distance. I want a 100-yard club. That could be a 52, that could be a 53, that could be a 54. Depends on the player. We want to have each of those lofts available to try.
That's great.
Yeah, it's a great lineup this year.
Yeah, really helps.
Yeah, I'm not going to have to grind as much.
Fair. I'll take that as a minor victory.
Well, Chris, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for your time.
It's always insightful talking to you and learning about Mizuno.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Chris.
Absolutely.
You've been watching DevotedGolfer.tv.